AITA for kicking my sister out of the house I bought because she considers it her home, bringing strangers here and throwing parties without my permission. I'm Emily, I'm 28 years old, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. About a year ago, I achieved something I had been working toward for nearly a decade. I bought my very first home. It's a modest two-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy or magazine-worthy, but it has a little backyard with a lemon tree, a sunroom that floods with light in the mornings, and a kitchen that finally has enough counter space for me to cook real meals instead of microwaving frozen stuff on a tiny apartment stove. It is small, peaceful, and mine. After years of roommates, loud upstairs neighbors, and sharing parking spots with people who always double-parked, I finally had a place to breathe. Enter my younger sister, Madison. She's 24, still lives with our parents, and she has always been, let's just say, free-spirited. She's the kind of person who would describe herself as, vibes first, logistics later, and while that might be cute on Instagram, in real life it's a little more chaotic. Growing up, she'd borrow my clothes without asking, eat the last of anything in the fridge without a second thought, and somehow never be the one to refill the gas tank or replace toilet paper. I love her, but she has never quite grasped the concept of boundaries. When I first moved into my house, I was excited to share it with the people I care about. Madison came over to see the place a few days after I moved in. She brought a bottle of wine, a few snacks, and made a whole show of flopping dramatically onto my new couch, calling it so cozy, and saying how she could totally live here. I laughed it off at the time. It felt nice to have family over, and she was genuinely happy for me. At first, her visits were innocent. She'd stop by on weekends, help me paint the sunroom, even brought over a plant as a housewarming gift. But it didn't stay that way for long. Over the next few weeks, she started coming over more often. Like, a lot more often. She'd show up unannounced in the middle of a workday, blasting music from her phone, saying she just needed a chill spot. I work remotely 3 days a week, and her sudden appearances started messing with my concentration. Then she began inviting her friends. At first it was just 1 or 2 people, usually people I had met once or twice at family events or through her, but then it escalated. One Friday evening I came back from a late shift at the hospital. Yes, I work part-time shifts there to make extra income, and I walked into my living room and there were 5 people I had never seen before sprawled across my furniture, eating chips, and watching a movie like they lived there. Madison wasn't even home yet. She had told her friends to head over before she arrived. I pulled her aside that night and told her, clearly and calmly, that this was not acceptable. That it was my house, not a crash pad or community center. She looked at me like I had just told her I was evicting her from her own apartment. She got defensive and said she thought I was cool with it because I never complained earlier. I told her that I had let it slide at first because I was trying to be welcoming, but now she was taking advantage of it. She muttered something about me being uptight and left in a huff. A week later, I went on a weekend wellness retreat with some coworkers. It was supposed to be a quiet, technology-free escape from stress. When I got back Sunday evening, I pulled into my driveway and immediately noticed the mess. My trash cans were overflowing, there were Solo cups and empty bottles in my recycling bin, and the smell of grilled meat still hung in the air like a party had just ended. I walked inside, and sure enough, there were greasy stains on the kitchen counter, footprints on the sunroom tile, and someone had broken one of the arms on my patio chair. I called Madison immediately. She answered casually, like nothing was wrong, and told me she had hosted a small get-together for her friends, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal because I wasn't home. She didn't ask. She didn't even tell me. She just used my house like it was her own Airbnb that she forgot to clean up. That's when I finally drew a hard line. I told her that from now on, she had to ask before coming over, no more unannounced visits, and absolutely no guests, especially not when I am not home. She rolled her eyes and said I was acting like a landlord instead of a sister. I told her I was acting like a homeowner. A homeowner who worked 50-hour weeks, budgeted for 7 years, and skipped vacations so I could afford a down payment in one of the most competitive markets in the country. I told her she was welcome in my life but not entitled to my house. She started sulking, telling me I was selfish and that I had changed since I bought the house. Then our mom got involved. She called me and said I should be more understanding, because Madison still lives at home and doesn't have her own place. She said Madison just wanted to feel like she had space to breathe too. I told Mom that Madison is not entitled to my space just because she hasn't figured out how to make her own. Mom said I was being too strict and that I should remember what family is for. I reminded her that family should also respect each other's boundaries. She hung up, clearly annoyed. But it didn't stop. Madison started showing up anyway. Sometimes she'd text me after she had already arrived, saying she was just in the neighborhood and figured she'd chill until I got home. One time, she climbed through the unlocked side gate and was sunbathing in my backyard when I pulled in from grocery shopping. Another time, she had the audacity to give the house address to a guy she was seeing and told him to just wait there until she got off work. I came home to a complete stranger asleep in my hammock. I changed the locks. I installed a camera at the front and back doors. I even put a keypad on the side gate so no one could just wander in. Madison lost it. She blew up my phone, saying I was overreacting and paranoid. She accused me of being controlling and acting like I was better than everyone else just because I had a house. I told her, calmly, that she had pushed every boundary and left me no choice. I said this wasn't about superiority, it was about safety, respect, and privacy. That week, she went crying to our mom again, and now my mom has started this guilt campaign, saying I'm turning my back on family. That I'm making Madison feel like an outsider. I told her Madison is an outsider when it comes to my house, she doesn't live here. And unless she starts treating me and my home with respect, she won't be welcome here at all. I've started seeing less and less of Madison now. She's clearly bitter, and she still posts passive-aggressive stuff online about fake people who let a little money change them. But I sleep soundly in my quiet house, my doors locked, my lemon tree blooming, and no strangers passed out in my hammock. So tell me, am I really the asshole for wanting boundaries in the one space I finally get to call my own? Update 1. I'm back with an update I honestly didn't think I'd need to write. After everything that happened with Madison, I truly believed we had reached a point of no return, a firm boundary set in stone. I thought I'd been clear. I know I was clear. I laid it all out for her, no more random visits, no more friends, no more treating my house like it was an extension of her social calendar. I was not being subtle or vague. I said it plainly, firmly, and more than once. And yet, somehow, to Madison, don't bring people over without asking, apparently translates to, throw a casual feast while I'm at work and hope I come home late enough not to notice. Let me walk you through what happened. It was last Friday. I had stayed late at the office to finish a big presentation for Monday. I was already tired, mentally tapped out, running on vending machine coffee and a protein bar I had eaten at my desk. I remember thinking on the drive home how excited I was to kick off my shoes, curl up with a blanket in the sunroom, and maybe eat some leftovers while watching mindless TV. I pulled into my driveway just after 8:30 p.m., and the first thing that struck me was the soft pulse of colored lights flickering through my living room blinds. I paused. I do not own colored lights. I opened the front door and immediately froze. My living room had been transformed into what looked like a budget influencer's chill night in Post. There were about 6 people lounging on my furniture. A guy I'd never seen before had his feet, his actual shoes, up on my coffee table. The entire table was covered in chaos, 3 open pizza boxes, scattered cartons of grocery store sushi, and half-drunk bottles of sparkling lemonade, sparkling water, and something that looked suspiciously like spiked punch. Someone had dimmed the main lights and replaced them with those color-changing LED bulbs I've never owned, set to some weird pinkish hue. My Bluetooth speaker was playing ambient lo-fi beats like this was a curated dinner party. There were even little tea light candles lit on the side table, my side table, the one I got from a thrift shop and lovingly sanded and repainted by hand. And there, in the middle of it all, was Madison. She was mid-laugh, a slice of pepperoni pizza in one hand, her legs tucked casually under her like she was exactly where she belonged. When she saw me standing there, keys still in hand, work bag slung over my shoulder, expression frozen in disbelief, she had the audacity to smile and say, "Oh hey. We thought you'd be home later." I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. There was this stillness in me, the kind that comes not from calm but from the bone-deep exhaustion of being disrespected so many times you can't muster any more words. I just set my bag down, looked around the room, and said, "Everyone. Out. Now." One of Madison's friends, a girl in a matching velour set who looked vaguely familiar from one of Madison's Instagram stories, tried to grab another slice of pizza on the way out like this was just a cute little misunderstanding. I stepped forward, snatched the box right out of her hands, and told her to keep moving. She looked startled but shuffled out with the others, mumbling something under her breath that I didn't care enough to decipher. Madison stood up slowly, like she was trying to decide whether to be indignant or wounded. She finally settled on incredulous and said, "You're seriously kicking us out in the middle of dinner? Are you okay?" I just stared at her, not blinking, not even flinching. I told her, again, that this was not her house. That I had asked her, told her, not to do this. That she had crossed the line, again, and that she was done. I reminded her that this wasn't just about pizza or guests or parties, it was about respect. About the fact that this house is mine. That I pay every bill, clean every floor, mow every blade of grass in that backyard she seems to think is her personal venue space. She stood there, mouth tight, eyes narrowed, trying to find an angle where she could make herself the victim. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. I didn't budge. I didn't blink. I didn't offer to talk it out or soften the blow or try to see it from her side. I had done all of that already. And she had walked all over it. She grabbed her bag off the couch, snatched her phone charger out of the wall like it had personally offended her, and stomped toward the door. As she pulled it open, she turned back one last time, shot me a glare full of betrayal and fury, and stormed out, muttering something about how I had control issues. Update 2. So I really thought that last update would be the end of it. I truly believed that walking into my own home and finding an uninvited dinner party, shutting it down in front of half a dozen strangers, and watching Madison storm out accusing me of having control issues, would be the final straw. That she'd finally get it. That she'd retreat back to our parents' house, complain about how unfair I was, and move on with her life. Nope. 2 days later, on a sunny Sunday morning, I was out in my garden clipping basil for a pasta dish I had planned for lunch. It was one of those calm, quiet moments I've come to treasure, bare feet on the grass, kitchen scissors in hand, the smell of fresh herbs and warm soil in the air. I was thinking about nothing in particular when I heard footsteps coming up the walkway. I turned, and there they were, Madison and our mom, standing side by side like some sort of emotionally manipulative SWAT team. My mom had that face. The one she always wore before launching into a guilt trip, the mix of faux concern and unspoken accusation. Her eyebrows were lifted just enough to suggest worry, but her mouth was tight, as if preparing for the counterattack. Madison stood slightly behind her, arms folded, expression pure martyrdom. Mom started with a sweet tone, overly casual, as if they had just dropped by to say hello after a stroll. She said they just wanted to talk. I said there was nothing to talk about. I told her that Madison broke my rules, disrespected my home, and made it perfectly clear she doesn't care about boundaries. I said she's no longer welcome here. I expected that to be enough. It wasn't. Madison immediately jumped in, scoffing and rolling her eyes, calling me dramatic and saying I was making a huge deal over pizza. Over pizza. As if what happened had anything to do with melted cheese and pepperoni, and not the blatant disregard for the most basic level of respect one person owes another in their own home. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just looked at her and said that I was making a big deal out of respect and boundaries, because that's what this has always been about. Not food, not socializing, just basic decency and ownership of my space. Mom wasn't done either. She tried her favorite tactic, the appeal to family unity. She said Madison is my sister, that she just needs a space to feel safe and loved. I asked why that space had to be mine. I asked why the home I worked so hard to build, to protect, to make peaceful and private, had to be sacrificed just because Madison hadn't figured out how to live like an adult yet. I told her, politely, very sweetly, that if Madison needs a place to feel safe and loved, she's more than welcome to find that at home with them. After all, she still lives there. Still eats their food, still uses their Wi-Fi, still treats their house like a teenager grounded for breaking curfew. That finally shut them down. At least for the moment. They both left, Mom shaking her head like I had disappointed her on a spiritual level, Madison glaring like I had betrayed some secret sisterhood pact. I closed the door and tried to let it go. But Madison wasn't done. 3 days later, I was at work when I got a call from my neighbor, Dan. Dan is retired, a former middle school vice principal, and famously nosy. He watches the street like it's a personal mission, which used to mildly annoy me, but that day, I was grateful. He told me he had seen someone trying to climb over my side fence around noon. He said it looked suspicious. I pulled up my security camera app immediately and checked the motion alerts from the backyard cam. There she was. Madison, dressed like she was trying out for the neighborhood break-in Olympics. Black leggings, oversized hoodie, hair tied back, backpack on. Moving slowly, crouched low, looking around like she knew she wasn't supposed to be there. She approached the side fence, peeked over, and hoisted herself up. My motion cam caught her struggling to climb the fence, landing awkwardly in my flower bed, brushing dirt off her knees like this was just a minor inconvenience on her way inside. She tiptoed across the lawn and made her way straight to the backyard window, the one I had once left cracked open for airflow before all of this madness began. She crouched in front of it, squinting through the glass. I watched the footage in disbelief, pulse pounding, teeth clenched. She wasn't just ignoring my rules, she was actively trying to sneak into my home. Like a burglar. Like an actual criminal. And for what? To grab her charger? To snoop? To prove some kind of point? I didn't know, and honestly, I didn't care. The intent was enough. That clip is saved on 3 devices now. I downloaded it to my phone, my laptop, and my external hard drive. I emailed a copy to myself. I even considered calling the police, not to press charges, but just to put something on record, because clearly, Madison wasn't hearing the message. This isn't just sibling drama anymore. This is trespassing. This is deliberate, calculated disrespect. This is someone trying to force access to my home after being told, repeatedly, that she is not welcome. So that's where we're at, Reddit. No more talks. No more reasoning. No more family guilt trips or sisterly grace periods. I've started looking into filing a no-contact order if she tries this again. Because this isn't a misunderstanding. This isn't a bad day or a fluke. This is who Madison is when she doesn't get what she wants. And the last thing I saw on that footage? Madison, in full leggings and hoodie like she was casing the joint, trying to get in through my backyard window. Update 3. Here's the final, I hope, installment of what I've come to call the Madison Chronicles, otherwise known as the slow burn horror movie where the monster isn't supernatural, she just shares your bloodline. After catching her on my security footage trying to climb into my house through the backyard window like some kind of suburban cryptid, I decided I had reached my absolute limit. There was no gray area left. No, but she's your sister, or, it's not that serious. It was serious. It was violating. And it was crystal clear that she wasn't going to stop until I created a barrier she physically could not cross. So I fortified. I reinforced the locks on all my doors, not just with stronger deadbolts but with smart locks that send me alerts if they're tampered with. I added motion-activated floodlights to the backyard, the side path, and the narrow strip of land between my house and the neighbor's fence. I installed a new security system with remote monitoring and hooked it up to my phone. The company offered optional interior motion sensors too, and I didn't even hesitate. I also added 2 Ring cameras, one on the front door and one on the side entrance that leads to the backyard. Between all of that, there's now a digital record of anyone who so much as steps near my house. I didn't make a dramatic announcement. I didn't send Madison a warning. I just did it. Quietly. Efficiently. Like someone who was done asking to be left alone and had decided to enforce that peace with hardware and code. About 4 days later, I got a text from an unfamiliar number. The message was short and passive, I miss how fun it used to be. No context, no name, no apology. But I knew exactly who it was. I didn't respond. A few hours after that, I got another message. This time it was a selfie, Madison, eyes red, head tilted, the classic expression of performative sadness designed for sympathy rather than sincerity. I stared at the screen for a moment, not angry, not upset, just tired. I locked the number and deleted the messages. That was supposed to be the end of it. But Madison, being Madison, found a new angle. It came out of nowhere. I got a call from my cousin Jenna, who lives in San Diego and whom I hadn't spoken to in a couple of months. Jenna is the cool, no-nonsense type. She's the person who actually reads leases before she signs them, the one who shows up with a color-coded spreadsheet when organizing family trips. She was already laughing when she called, which threw me off. She said she had just gotten the weirdest message from Madison, and her gut told her something was off. Madison had apparently reached out claiming she had been kicked out unfairly, and was looking for a fresh start in a new city, specifically San Diego. She told Jenna she needed a place to crash for a while and thought they could reconnect like family should. Jenna said it sounded fishy. Madison had never expressed any desire to get close with her before, and suddenly she was all about family unity and spiritual healing by the beach. Jenna called me to get the real story. So I told her everything. The escalating visits, the unapproved guests, the unauthorized party, the complete disregard for boundaries, the attempt to break into my house through a backyard window. I even sent her the ring footage. Jenna went completely silent for a moment. Then she burst out laughing. Like full-on, unfiltered laughter. She said, so she's just completely lost it. And then, with no hesitation at all, she blocked Madison. That was the moment I knew something had shifted. I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in this entire ridiculous saga, someone in the family didn't try to excuse Madison's behavior. Jenna didn't tell me to forgive or forget. She didn't say I was being too harsh. She simply recognized the madness for what it was and refused to let it land in her lap. And then there was Mom. After that little stunt with the fence, I decided she needed to see it too. I called her over, played the ring footage without commentary, and just watched her face. At first, it was the usual disbelief, followed by a quick scan for excuses. But even she couldn't spin it. The sight of Madison dressed like a low-budget cat burglar, hopping the fence, crouching in my flower bed, and creeping toward the window like she was casing the joint, stripped away any plausible deniability. Mom didn't apologize. She's not the type. But she did shake her head slowly and say, maybe Madison's going through something. That was it. No follow-up plea. No demand that I open my heart and my home. Just quiet resignation. I took it as the closest thing to an acknowledgement I was going to get. Now, 3 weeks later, everything is quiet. There have been no texts, no calls, no weird appearances. The lights haven't tripped from unexpected motion, and my cameras haven't picked up anything beyond the usual raccoon activity and neighborhood kids taking shortcuts. It's just me, my plants, and my sunroom. I get up in the morning and make coffee without wondering who might be in my living room. I leave for work knowing my house will be exactly the way I left it. I come home and sit by the window while the light shifts across the floor and the basil in the garden waves gently in the breeze. I read, I cook, I nap on the couch with the windows open. The air smells like rosemary and lemons, not cheap perfume and half-eaten pizza. For the first time in a long while, I feel like I'm actually living in my home, not guarding it, not defending it, not waiting for it to be taken over again. It's mine. Fully and peacefully mine. And it stayed that way for 3 blessed, silent weeks. No parties, no intrusions, no guilt trips, no climbing. Just the stillness I earned and the sanctuary I built. Madison hasn't tried anything else. I think she finally got the message.